indulge. I'm not a drinker, but I might indulge for the occasion. So if I get a little tipsy tomorrow night, my beautiful African queens, if I get a little tipsy tomorrow night, my beautiful African queens, and I accidentally let me behave.
Have you ever followed a story that seemed like it would never end? A saga so full of twists and turns that you start to wonder if the dream at its heart even exists? Well, today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and controversial stories in modern education and activism. Dr. Umar Johnson and his decade-long attempt to open the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy. 11 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars raised from devoted supporters, speeches, appearances, interviews, and yet there's still no school, no students enrolled, no teachers hired, no classrooms operational, just a never-ending cycle of excuses, blame, and theatrical storytelling. So the question becomes, is Umar Johnson truly the most sabotaged man alive, cursed by bureaucratic nightmares, water bills, grass tickets, and shadowy conspiracies? Or is there a deeper truth hidden beneath all the drama? To understand the full story, we need to go back to 2014. Umar announced his ambitious plan to purchase HBCU St. Paul's College in Lawrenceville, Virginia. His vision was inspiring on paper, a school dedicated to Black children, focused on discipline, pride, self-determination, and providing a structured environment where students could thrive academically and personally. It sounded like a dream that could change lives, a bold statement for Black education, and for a moment, many believed it was achievable. Supporters rallied around the cause, donations started coming in, and momentum began to build. But fast forward to 2025, and the reality is starkly different. The school has yet to open. There are still no students walking the halls, no teachers guiding lessons, no administration running the day-to-day operations. The doors remain locked, and the dream remains just that, a dream. According to Umar, the delay isn't due to lack of planning, missed deadlines, or financial missteps. No, in his version, it's always someone else's fault. YouTubers are hating on him. Bougie Black folks with upwardly mobile attitudes are sabotaging the dream. The city, the government, and even the weather are conspiring against him. In Umar Johnson's world, accountability isn't just inconvenient, it doesn't exist at all. Excuses are elevated into an art form woven into a narrative so elaborate that anyone who questions him risks being labeled a hater, a saboteur, or part of a secret conspiracy.
Africanism, brothers and sisters, I'm back again. While I was on the live, the children had snuck into the school, which means they knew the door was unlocked. Listen to me, brothers and sisters. For children to know that a door is opened, and I was only away from the school for 30 days. For children to know that the door was open, and I was only away from the school for 30 days. For children to know the door was open, and I was only away from the school for 30 days, I wonder when they broke in. I wonder when they broke in, because if the children already know the door was open.
Just recently, Umar Johnson released another interview on his YouTube channel. The interview was hosted by his go-to collaborator, Baba, who was known for never asking challenging questions, simply nodding along as Umar launches into lengthy monologues. Instead of inspiring confidence, the interview became a masterclass in deflection, blame, and the art of turning everyday obstacles into tales of persecution. Umar spoke for over an hour, covering a litany of grievances, how YouTubers are supposedly targeting him, how the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy is being sabotaged, and even how he's drowning in absurd expenses like a $30,000 water bill for a building that, according to him, had no running water. He even dredged up a ticket for high grass from 5 years ago and framed it as part of a long-term pattern of oppression. What's remarkable here is the sheer consistency of this pattern. Every minor problem, no matter how routine or universal, is turned into proof of a larger conspiracy. If bills are stacking up, it's sabotage. If fees rise, it's persecution. If a critic speaks out, they become part of a shadowy plot working against him. In Umar's narrative, the villains are never missed deadlines, poor planning, or financial mismanagement. They're always external forces, people, policies, or systems conspiring to prevent his vision from coming to life. Let's pause for a moment and examine some of these so-called big obstacles. Take the infamous $30,000 water bill, for example. Umar claims that the city of Wilmington deliberately hit him with this outrageous fee despite there being no running water in the building. According to him, this is evidence that the city was actively trying to sabotage his school. In reality, every property owner pays stormwater and sewage fees regardless of whether the building is occupied or empty. The fees aren't a personal attack, they're a standard universal policy applied to all properties. Yet Umar spins it into a narrative where the very forces of nature and municipal bureaucracy are aligned against him. Then there are the vacant property fines. Yes, they increased. But this increase applied to every empty building in the city that had been sitting unused for years. It wasn't a personal vendetta against Umar Johnson, but in his storytelling, it becomes proof that the system is out to crush him and, by extension, sabotage the education of Black children. And let's not forget the grass ticket saga during the COVID lockdown when he received a citation for overgrown grass. While ordinary citizens everywhere were dealing with similar municipal enforcement issues, Umar transformed this minor inconvenience into an elaborate conspiracy involving city inspectors and secret plots, as if the pandemic had been paused just to target his front lawn. Every routine, universally applied policy becomes evidence of personal attack. Every delay becomes a deliberate act of oppression. And yet his followers don't see routine bureaucracy. They see persecution. They don't see mismanagement. They see a hero under siege. If you step back and look at the bigger picture, a clear pattern emerges. For over a decade, the same cycle has repeated. Umar announces a bold deadline. We're opening next year. Excitement grows, supporters donate, and momentum builds. The deadline passes, and nothing changes. Classrooms remain empty, and doors remain locked. A new villain emerges. Could be the city, YouTubers, water, fees, or some imagined conspiracy. He asks for more donations to fight back against these forces. The school never opens, but the story never stops. Setbacks are not challenges to be solved. They are the fuel for the ongoing narrative. This cycle has created a self-sustaining system. The drama itself becomes the product, keeping followers engaged and donations flowing. Meanwhile, Umar's focus isn't on construction plans or contractor meetings. Instead, he travels across the country and even internationally, giving fiery speeches about Pan-African unity, colonial conspiracies, and his legendary dream school. Each appearance reinforces the story and encourages more donations, but the physical reality of the school continues to lag behind. For every $50 donation, supporters imagine classrooms being built, teachers being hired, and students receiving a quality education. But where is Umar? Not inside the school, not overseeing construction or administrative details, but on stage selling the same dream again and again. What's particularly fascinating about this saga is the psychology behind it. Umar isn't just selling a school, he's selling a struggle. He's convinced his followers that they aren't merely funding a construction project, they are funding a movement under attack. Every fine, every bill, every delay becomes symbolic, not just for him, but for the entire community he claims to represent. In the eyes of his supporters, it's not mismanagement, it's oppression. It's not mistakes, it's sabotage. This narrative has transformed Umar from a man building a school into a symbol of resistance, a hero fighting invisible forces. And the beauty or the danger of this system is that it keeps supporters engaged. They believe they're contributing to a larger cause, defending their community against imagined enemies, rather than funding a project that has repeatedly failed to materialize. Each setback reinforces the story, turning everyday administrative issues into proof that Umar's mission is under constant attack. The irony is almost poetic. Umar Johnson has spent years preaching Black pride, unity, and self-determination. He spent countless hours telling people that Black women are queens and that the community must lift itself up. Yet, when a piece of paperwork gets delayed or a city employee doesn't act fast enough, suddenly the enemy isn't external systems of oppression, it's his own community. According to Umar, Black employees in city offices are secretly plotting against him. It's a stunning contradiction, and yet it's central to his narrative. Those closest to the dream, he claims, are the ones standing in its way. This kind of storytelling is powerful. By framing setbacks as betrayals by supposed allies, Umar creates a narrative where criticism is equated with sabotage. Followers are discouraged from questioning him because doing so positions them as part of the enemy. This rhetorical shield makes accountability nearly impossible and keeps the story alive and profitable. Here's the harsh truth after more than a decade of effort. There is no school. There are no classrooms, no teachers, no students, no accreditation, and no tangible results. What does exist is Umar Johnson's fundraising machine and his storytelling prowess. The dream itself has become secondary. The narrative around the dream has become the product. Each new interview, every speech, every public appearance reinforces the story and encourages supporters to continue donating. If Umar were truly focused on the kids, he could have opened a single classroom, started with one teacher, and let results speak louder than speeches. But that hasn't happened. Instead, the drama perpetuates itself. The Dream School has more power as a story than as a real institution, and the cycle continues, fueled by hope, ambition, and a relentless ability to spin excuses into narratives of persecution. However, beyond the promises of a revolutionary school, Umar Johnson's personal life has also attracted significant attention, controversy, and public scrutiny. Over the years, rumors and allegations of affairs have surfaced, creating a complicated and sometimes messy narrative that intertwines with his public persona. While Johnson presents himself as a disciplined, principled advocate for Black youth, some reports suggest that his private behavior has not always aligned with this carefully constructed public image. For followers who admire his charisma and message, these allegations can be jarring, forcing a reassessment of the man behind the microphone. The stories often focus on relationships outside of marriage, encounters with women that allegedly conflict with his public moral stance, and accusations of financial impropriety tied to personal relationships. These controversies add layers to his story that go beyond fundraising, speeches, or promises of a school. They humanize him in ways that are complicated and, for some supporters, disappointing. What makes these allegations particularly notable is the way they intersect with Umar's public messaging about discipline, morality, and community responsibility. Johnson often preaches about the importance of self-control, integrity, and role modeling for Black youth, especially young men. When allegations of affairs arise, critics argue that there is a stark disconnect between the principles he publicly advocates and the choices he allegedly makes in private. This perceived hypocrisy has fueled skepticism among detractors, who question whether a man so publicly committed to ethical leadership can truly embody the values he preaches. For supporters, the challenge becomes reconciling admiration for his vision with concerns about his personal conduct, a tension that continues to spark debate across social media and in public discourse. Some of the controversies surrounding Umar's alleged affairs have also been amplified by online communities in social media platforms. Videos, blog posts, and forums have dissected his behavior, comparing past statements to alleged actions and highlighting perceived contradictions. The result is a multi-layered public narrative where Johnson is both a charismatic advocate for Black empowerment and a figure enmeshed in personal controversy. These allegations, whether fully verified or not, demonstrate how public figures can face intense scrutiny not only for their professional promises, but also for their private lives, and how such scrutiny can affect perception, credibility, and influence. However, over the years, one of the most persistent controversies surrounding Dr. Umar Johnson has been the allegation that the funds raised for his Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy were not always used in the ways donors expected. Since the initial GoFundMe campaigns and private fundraising efforts began around 2014, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and possibly even more depending on the source, have been donated by individuals eager to see a school for Black boys come to life. Yet, over a decade later, critics point out that the school remains unopened, classrooms are empty, and no formal accreditation has been achieved. These circumstances have led many to question whether the money was mismanaged, redirected to personal expenses, or otherwise spent on activities unrelated to the construction, staffing, or operation of the school. Allegations are further fueled by Johnson's lavish travel schedule, speaking fees, and appearances, which some argue may have been funded at least in part by donor contributions meant for educational development. Adding to the controversy, videos and online analyses have highlighted a pattern where donations were raised with compelling promises of tangible progress, yet updates often featured rhetoric, speeches, and motivational content, rather than visible construction milestones. Critics allege that while Johnson's charisma and ability to rally supporters are undeniable, a lack of financial transparency has left room for suspicion. Some point to instances where money was reportedly spent on travel, international conferences, and personal endeavors, rather than classroom materials, building renovations, or teacher salaries. These concerns have sparked debate over accountability. Donors invested in a shared vision, yet the concrete results, a functioning school, remain absent. For many, this raises the uncomfortable question of whether the funds were misused, or if poor planning, mismanagement, and overambitious goals simply prevented the money from being applied as intended. The allegations of misuse are often intertwined with claims of opacity in Johnson's reporting of finances. Unlike traditional nonprofits or educational institutions, there appears to be limited access to detailed accounting or third-party audits that could verify how donations were allocated. This lack of transparency has been a focal point for critics, who argue that without clear financial statements, it becomes impossible to separate genuine construction or operational delays from potential misappropriation of funds. Some commentators have noted that while Johnson frequently highlights obstacles like city fees, water bills, and bureaucratic interference, there is comparatively little evidence showing the direct application of raised funds towards those specific expenses. In the absence of verifiable records, speculation fills the gap, and questions of financial ethics continue to shadow his fundraising efforts. Moreover, the allegations extend beyond simple mismanagement. Some detractors suggest that a deliberate narrative of struggle and sabotage may have been used strategically to encourage additional donations. By presenting obstacles, ranging from city fines to conspiracies, as insurmountable external threats, critics argue Johnson may have created a psychological loop where supporters continually contribute, believing they are helping to overcome systemic attacks. While this approach can be seen as clever fundraising, it has also been interpreted by some as manipulative, raising ethical concerns about whether donor trust has fully been honored. The line between legitimate fundraising for a difficult project and exploitation of goodwill remains contested, leaving many observers questioning how much of the money raised truly reached the educational mission it was intended to support.